Game's all here. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order for the lease/license agreement with BRT. It's running a little late. It's 6:22 on Wednesday, September 29th, the caucus room, 3rd floor, City Hall. We have myself, Mary Teicholz, the chair, Councilman Don Taylor, Councilman Paul Rotella, members of the committee. We have Dennis Alpern, the Director of Planning, Les Pinter, Corporation Counsel, David St. Hilaire, Director of Finance, and Mr. Bertram from BRT, and Joe Cavo, ex officio. So this is a request from the mayor's office, actually. It says, my office has received a request from the BRT Corporation for a lease or license agreement for a very small portion of city-owned property at the corner of Crosby Street and Lee Hartel Drive for the purposes of parking spaces. I respectfully ask that this request be referred to a City Council Ad Hoc Committee for review and action. Do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. Sincerely, Mayor Mark D. Boughton. And I will ask Mr. Pinter to kind of lead us off here. Oh, excuse me. And also, it has a positive recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mary. First of all, the request that you read was from the mayor's office to have this committee consider a lease or license agreement for a corner piece of property in this location. Dennis has a map here so we can look at it. But the issue was that BRT developed this piece of property into different uses. Dennis will clarify what the uses are later. But in order to accommodate those uses, they would be in need of 4 parking spaces to allow for public parking, customer parking in that area. So what they were seeking from the city was consideration of some form of allowance for customer parking in those 4 spaces. Although the planning report indicated 3 spaces, but it's actually 4 spaces. As part of that request, the council directed this to the Planning Commission, which did file a report. They stipulated certain conditions on a lease or license that is identified in the report that you have before you, and that once those stipulations and conditions could be negotiated into an agreement, that agreement would be considered and approved. As an alternative, the mayor has indicated that his preference and the preference of others, some others, would be for parking meters as an alternative in those 4 spaces to be installed and maintained by the Danbury Parking Authority. And that would be accomplished by the direction of this committee to the council to authorize the Planning Commission, again, to authorize the installation of those parking meters. It's a question by state law of suitability of parking meters in an area that the Planning Commission would have to authorize that, determine suitability, and then based on the council's approval, final approval, those meters would be installed, maintained by the parking authority. So what you have before you is consideration of either a lease, license, or an alternative of installation of parking meters to accommodate the request for parking use of those 4 parking spaces in that area. So again, city property, So the city has options available to it, to not do it, to do it, or other alternatives. That's, the summary is,
Okay, I'll take questions after we hear
Dennis.
from Dennis Elper, please.
I have a question.
No,
No, you have to wait.
I have a question.
they have the question.
I have a question of learned counsel. The mayor says he prefers parking meters?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
News to you?
yeah. There's a problem with that would have to be worked out through the corporation counsel's office.
Learning council.
Learning counsel's office, and that is access, because in order to access those, you'd be driving over Mr. Bertram's property. So you would need an easement of access to get to those 4 parking spaces. All right? Which gets complicated, because we're talking about 4 spaces. My guess, and I was talking to Don with the meeting, my guess is that historically, that this was here at a time when Lee Hartel probably, speculating, came into a T intersection with Crosby. Crosby was made one way, so Lee Hartel came straight out here. You didn't need a 90-degree intersection. That's my guess. So there was land left over. Mr. Bertram came in with his proposal, which most of us were quite enthusiastic about, because it would inject new life in the downtown. Included Papa John's, a dance studio, 2 apartments, and an unoccupied space, which hopefully he would like to use for a coffee shop in the future. Now, he has approval for everything but the coffee shop. So he wants 4 more spaces to help facilitate that. When we received this, it was a proposal for him to lease the land from the city. Again, if we don't do that, either these spaces are not used, are sealed off, or we need to get the rights to pass and repass over his property to get to those 4 spaces, which chances are will only be used by people who are using the facilities in that shopping center. So that is why I believe the Planning Commission recommended an approval to the lease. Now, as I have said on other occasions, there is a danger in leasing. And the danger is that sometime in the future, the city has all rights to regain control of those spaces. He would not have sufficient parking at that point. Then what do you do? What do you do then? Do you go back to the owner and say, well, you don't have sufficient parking, therefore you have to close down one of your operations? Chances are that's not going to happen. But what would happen is you would end up with fewer spaces than we think you'd need. So that's where it stands now, and as Learning Council pointed out, there were 4 conditions that would go with the lease.
I think I'm going to read into record the 4 conditions, because we keep referring to it, and just so everyone's on the same page. The conditions are the city reserving the right in the future to terminate said lease or license at its sole discretion should it be necessary to improve the roadway. Number 2, the provision of legal documents ensuring that BRT remains responsible for the maintenance of all improvements within the leased area. Number 3, the provision of proper indemnification terms, and 4, the provision of easement rights, drainage, and rights to pass and repass over and across such leased area. Okay, I'm going...
If I may, just
Sure.
summarize the options before you. You can accept the mayor's recommendation. By the way, this has already been improved. know that. It's already
It's
been
there.
repainted.
I drove by it
Okay.
tonight, and there's a yellow, tape
Yeah.
across it.
To put in parking meters, they would be presumably maintained and enforced by the parking authority. That, as I mentioned before, requires rights to pass or repass over private land to get to. But you could do that. 2, you could lease it. And 3, you could sell it.
What was number 3, I'm sorry?
Sell.
Sale.
Or licensed, that would be sort of like 3.5
Well,
or
I would
2.5.
kind of put lease license
Yeah.
together, or just sell it.
I just want to get Mr. St. Hilaire's input, and then we'll go to questions, please.
What's your specific question?
Well,
I mean, we've discussed this prior to this, and I think all those options that Dennis mentioned were discussed. And I think we talked about the pros and cons of all of it, and it really comes down to what your wishes might be. The meter, has the benefits of the meter, which the parking authority will administer. Will be additional revenue to the parking authority, and it's kind of difficult to estimate what that would be, but it certainly would be on the plus side. The problems with that is just what Dennis mentioned. The lease, we do have other leasing arrangements that you're all aware of. And, for that, it's not a piece of property that has any other particular use for us. And then, of course, the third option that Dennis just brought up, the sale, so.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you. Through the chair to Les. I'm not familiar with the difference between lease or license. What is the difference between those two terms?
The lease would be an interest in the land that's a more permanent arrangement between the parties. The license is essentially a contract, which usually is terminable at will of either side, or has a shorter term of existence, and is not an interest in the land. It doesn't require planning commission approval. The license doesn't. The lease
Okay.
would. So they're different in terms of interest in land and in the duration of it.
So it would be my feeling that the leasing would be more interested in a long-term lease than a license.
Well, they might be. They might be.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the city's interest may be.
Okay, the also indemnification, my concern would be insurance on that property. They would assume all liability on that
Yes,
property?
We would ask them for insurance.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I think that they've done a great job here. This property's been vacant and empty and deteriorating for 6 years or more. It's been vastly improved. I love the mural on the wall that Joe Giuseppe did. I came by there, they were working there tonight. When I drove by, I could hear the nail guns working. So it's, I think that for 4 parking meters, I would not be in favor of asking the leasee to install or to give us the right to install parking meters. I think they've done a great job improving that property, and I'd be in favor of granting them a lease or a license or whatever they need to be able to have those 4 parking spaces that already exist there. Thank you.
Councilmember Town.
Thanks. Through the chair to Corporation Counsel. Les, could you just walk us through the process here? Any land lease would have to go to a public hearing. What do we do first if we were to make that motion that Councilman Taylor wants? Send it first to, I assume we'd have to see a lease at some point. I don't want to vote on this without seeing a lease. So we get the lease, maybe we meet again with a lease and we approve it, send it to the council, then it goes to a public hearing, then it becomes law? Is that basically what it is?
We would negotiate a lease with Mr. Bertram's company and provide that lease to the committee. If you do that, we would probably want you to see the lease. Go back.
We would have to go to a public hearing on this.
Right, you go to a public hearing with that, right, and then back to the council.
parking meters, no public hearing, because we're just doing ourselves, yeah. I'm leaning towards parking meters. I think they're actually even better for the petitioner than a lease. We can rescind a lease, we can rescind a license. Parking meters are a little bit more permanent, and I'm sure that the petitioner, I don't want to speak for him, he's right here, I don't pretend like he's not in the room. But if it was my property, I would be, you know, chomping at the bit to give you guys an easement so that you could get into these parking spaces. But I'll leave that on the table for a second. Through the chair, again, to Dennis, you said that the petitioner's got his approvals now, but he will need more parking if he develops more square footage, and he would have to have those additional 4 spaces?
Correct?
We've gone to excuse me.
Yeah, no,
It's fine.
We have gone to the zoning board of appeals and had variances granted on the property that would allow for the coffee shop / cafe to still work. But the reality of it is that the more parking that's immediately around that site, the better the site will perform. There's no question about it. If we have a reduced cafe in terms of numbers of seats and things like that, that's not as healthy a proposition moving forward. While it could technically, you know, be approvable, it wouldn't necessarily be the best thing in terms of the numbers of seats you could have outside the cafe or outside of Papa John's. So it's very helpful to the development of the property for these 4 spots to be there.
can I follow up with that?
Sure.
Okay. Dan, are you saying that to do the build out that you think you're going to need or that you would like to need, you actually would need those spots?
I'm saying that any parking downtown is helpful to development downtown.
That's understood. What I'm asking you is, legally, would he, if he builds this out to the extent that he's imagining, does he at present have enough parking to fulfill the legal requirement? That's
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, counting these 4 spaces?
No, not counting.
Oh, not counting, the way he is now, yeah, but it doesn't have approval for coffee shop.
Okay, what about the...
So that depends on how many seats he wants in that
What about the
coffee shop.
Right.
500-foot, where's the parking garage? Does that factor
About
in?
800 feet.
Oh, it is?
We looked.
Right, well, I mean, if we did the parking meters, he could be up and running tomorrow. If we did a lease, this could take a couple of months. I mean, there is that factor too.
That's right, but you have to get a lease from him. Or
I understand that.
an agreement for pass and repass, I believe, across this property to get to.
I've been, from the start on this, I've been pretty agnostic about the form of redeveloping this as it relates to these spots. Clearly, there was parking going on city property forever, right? In sprucing this up and making things, well, better in this latest round of redevelopment, it made sense to do these. They slotted in well. You could come out of the site and still get up to the stop sign where Lee Hartfeld is Crosby. It's just better development, and Dennis was instrumental in helping us work on that. This is the board that shows the...
Sigma plans, yes. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's highlighted where we're talking about. Before we did the recent improvements, the exit onto Crosby Street was farther down this way. And so...
It was moved back from the intersection, correct?
Yeah, so that you could come out and make it to the stop bar. It was just better for the way that this whole roadway would function. So from the standpoint of what goes on with this, with these 4 spots, it made all the sense in the world the way that the corner lays out for them to be there. Again, I'm not trying to make anything complicated by not answering, oh, we want this, but it's just that we do have flexibility. It clearly helps the development potential and the success of the operations of the businesses inside this space for those 4 spots to exist. Whether or not they are municipally metered, or if they are leased to us or through a license, yes, there are pros and cons, but I don't want to introduce any obstacles to this. It's just better for the development. We're here to see how that can go forward.
My personal opinion is that if the city can maintain control over its property, it's probably better in the long term for the city. And if the petitioner has no feeling one way or the other, I would be more in favor of parking meters than a lease or license. We keep the property, he still gets his parking, the parking authority makes a few bucks. I mean, it seems to be a workable solution. We license it or we lease it, and we have got to get in there for some reason or another. We've got an extra layer of complication. That would be my,
Mr. Cabo, only because he's been waiting.
When this whole thing first popped up, I had gone to Corporation Council and asked them about the possibility of meters in the spot, and Les and I had some discussion about this, and my feeling on the meters is, as was Mr. Rotello's, this is quick, it covers the need, it protects the spots for the city's purposes, keeps them still in city's control. The thing that I just wanted to ask Mr. Elkhorn was that, Dennis, when I notice when they do the meters downtown, they walk. And they walk and they push a cart and they collect the meters, changing it. And I don't know why they couldn't access the meters from the curbside, from the sidewalk side, without having to need even a right to pass and repass.
Cars, Joe.
Cars would have to.
Cars.
To get to the parking
not
space.
the
Okay.
The actual
Pass over his
So the
property.
public would have to have the right then to pass and repass, okay.
Anybody can, I could park there and go to another shop, that's not doing Dan any favors.
Right.
But because it's a public meter, anybody can park there, and we would need permission
So
to access his
it's just not
property.
the access for the meters, it's access to the spaces. Okay.
I mean, nobody's gonna do that, it'd be a stupid place
No,
to
right.
park, but,
Right.
you know.
But, my feeling is that, outside of, being able to do this and get it done and not have to go through a tremendous amount of, leasing. I mean, what we went through on the UB property for leasing spaces was just incredible. And I don't want to do that over 4 spaces here downtown that the city could certainly maintain control over and have that by a parking meter. And I don't think Mr. Bertrand would be objection to writing us an easement to pass and repass that would be acceptable to this committee and to Corporation Council. And it would be done. So I too see the meters as a favorable way to do this, to be expedient and to be efficient.
Councilman Taylor.
For the chair, Mr. Bertram, I'd like to get your feeling would that be an agreeable situation for you? When I spoke before, I wasn't actually clear on how the meter was worked. I thought it would be more advantageous to you without the meters, but if it would expedite the process and make those spaces usable, I'd like to have your feeling on what you would like to see.
My feeling is that if I were ranking them, I would say that the lease is best, the license is last, and the meters are I should say next, and then the meters are last, actually. But again, but I'm not trying to make this complicated. I realize that by not taking a position, I seem to be making it complicated. I really was just trying to say, when we sat down and looked at this property, what's the best way to go forward and try to make something that was blighted come alive, right? And justify subsequent investment. I agree with Dennis's point. Because Dennis is in the realm of planning and function. What's the long-term best thing? It's definitely to lease these spots. We have control over them as it relates to leasing space within the building, and it's easier, it's a cleaner relationship with the spaces that are here. When you think about the functioning of the property, somebody comes in and they're not using this 10,000 square foot building, they're coming in and going off somewhere else, right? We have no control over that with a municipal meter scenario. So, yes, I agree with Dennis on that front. But, again, in the practice, I grew up in this business and there's a lot of process to things. And so sometimes you just say, well, is it worth going through all the process? And you try to find simpler ways through. So, from my perspective, yes, the lease is best, the license is next, the parking meters are last. I, though, have said parking meters from the day one in the, on that list, just from the standpoint of not having a whole lot of process about it. So I can't say, I don't want to back up from anything I've put on the table because I'm not looking to do that. But I also don't want to make waves on this thing. We are committed to bringing some more life in down there. And definitely those parking spaces, as it relates to the number of seats in the cafe, are important to us, very much so.
Thank you.
Just to be a devil's advocate, it may not happen, may not be a
You-
problem, but if anybody if you put meters there, anybody can use it. And if people do start using that, they're not reserved for his uses. Okay?
Neither are anything else in front of any store on Main Street, so
Yeah, but they have requirements that they meet.
I understand.
All right, it's not a proper comparison.
That's true. Point taken. If I can remind the committee, it took 18 months to do the leases for Chuck E. Cheese.
And on that count, just if I can, please, area, and I'll have to Dennis's point about that, one of the problems with the UB Danbury was that by virtue of the approvals they got, UB Danbury had to rely on the leases that we had given them. Without those leases, they were out of compliance. Remember, Dennis?
Yeah.
So that the same scenario could possibly occur here, which is the risk we saw in UB Danbury. It doesn't mean it'll occur here, but we have to be mindful of that possibility
Yeah, but-
anytime it happens.
And also, the petitioner's made it pretty clear that he thinks, and Dennis, you also think, that you're kind of on the mark already. I mean, maybe not fully out or fully as many tables as you might wish to have, but certainly enough without the 4 spots to have, I believe is what you were saying,
It's
everything
a
that you
matter
have
of-
at present, including in the future.
I would ask, Dennis is the best person to answer this question, which is, if there are metered spots right in front, how does that impact the number of seats we can have in the cafe?
That's right.
That's probably.
I'm
That's
sorry you
the
asked
only
that
question.
question because I don't have
You don't
the
need to.
answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
We have a lengthy section in the regs on shared parking, and I wasn't
No, I'm,
prepared
Right.
to get into that, but typically they have to be reserved for your use. Unless you have, unless it's in a garage or something and you have an approval from the parking authority,
Right.
that kind of thing. If it's private property, you need a long-term lease. If you were to go to hauling, let's say across the street, and try to lease land from him, you would need a lease from him. So these things all come back to haunt us and
no, I get that.
tend to make things more complicated. The other question, though, I would ask is, even if that were reserved 4 spaces, how many seats could you get into the coffee shop? Now, our requirement
it's
is, huh?
It's a significant enhancement.
Our requirement is, well, right now you have, according to your approved plan, you provided 18 spaces. Excuse me, required was 18, you provide 19. Okay. One second. Does that, by the way, does that include the variance on employees?
No. And so that's where
Okay.
it goes to your question, Paul, about do they have what they need? We have this variance for employee parking to be supplied by the
Off-site.
parking garage, that
Yeah.
type of thing, right? And so from that perspective, we reserve on-site for the customers.
Customers.
Yeah.
Right, because you'll walk to get your paycheck, but you won't walk to, buy your pizza.
And you only have to walk once in the morning.
So those 19 on spot, if I
Right.
may, those 19 on spot spaces are reserved exclusively for clientele.
Yeah.
Yeah, for matters of the legal requirements, whether your employees
Right.
actually, okay.
Right, and that's enforcement for this from the landlord's perspective, just to make sure, or the business operator, to make sure that the employees aren't taking customer parking spaces.
Which, from a business perspective, you wouldn't want your employees to do.
Yeah.
You do not want to lose a sale, as a
Absolutely.
guy pulls in to get a coffee and there's no place to
Right,
park.
right, and there was a reasonable accommodation from the ZBA to review it in that light.
Actually, that was our suggestion.
Yeah, I know.
Because right now I'm working on a plan for the downtown, and that's going to be one of our recommendations, that for employee parking, that the landowner has an option. He can either provide it on site, or he can buy parking spaces in the garage at whatever distance.
Oh, but that's not written in yet.
No, no, it's
Whatever distance.
a brilliant thing I'm working on. Yeah, because.
Could I do that? I mean, if I had property a mile away, could I do
This
this?
is only in my study area.
Only in your what? Your
My
stuff?
study area, yeah. Now, the reason for that is, as I think Dan mentioned, is that when you work in place, you park your car, you walk to work in the morning, and then you go back in the evening.
You don't tie up a customer
Okay.
space all day long.
Well, if you're a customer, you're not gonna walk in
No.
your feet
No.
for a slice of pizza. Well, unless you're
You're
starving.
hungry enough.
If you're hungry enough.
Those college kids.
College kids do anything. So, long story short, he can't really tell you at this point what he's going to need in the future. I think it's fair. We'd have to.
Well, there's no question that the more
I'm gonna
parking.
have to do some math to see where we are right now and take out the employee spaces. I would have to do that. And then try to calculate based on one space per 4 seats in a restaurant.
Let's take a step back, because I'm getting a flavor for
Excuse
this.
me,
If I
if I may
No,
interrupt,
pardon me.
because I'm thinking we're talking about if these 4 spaces, but I'm under the impression that we're kind of sitting here just deciding how we're going to handle the 4 spaces, not taking the 4 spaces away. So that's where I'm a little confused. Excuse me, Councilman Cavo was like, ready.
Waving mildly.
Mr. Alpern, if I could just through the chair ask, what would your feeling be on the likelihood of the planning commission considering these 4 spots metered playing into Mr. Bertram's build out of this building? Is there a possibility the planning commission can say, no, you can't count them if we metered them? Because if that's the case, then we would say right now it's a done, we're not going to even talk about metering because that doesn't work into the build out of the building. It would have to be a lease agreement then, and then we'd have to go in that direction. I mean, if the planning commission would say that, well, these could be shared spaces, somebody down the street, Subway could park in there, pay at the meter and walk up to Subway.
Yeah, I would, you're right. I'd like to research that further to get a definitive answer, but my hunch is that he could not, because they're for the general public.
And then that does, to our point, become problematic, because one of the major pieces of that redevelopment was that large deck that we did surrounding the 2 sides, or bordering 2 sides. And so from that perspective, you see people eating pizza outside now, and that will come around and wrap around the cafe portion, but we wouldn't want to be having to do fewer seats, having less of that downtown outside energy over something like this. And I think we get 12 seats, maybe 16, tied to 4 parking spaces. So it is a significant change in feel.
Could you repeat that?
There's a ratio, I think it's 1 to 4 maybe for the parking spaces. So you would be able to have 4 seats for each parking space that you have outside. So that's 16 additional outside seats that we would be able to offer our customers.
Simply because of these 4
Simply
spaces?
because of those, right? So it's sort of, it unlocks more potential for the use outside. And that's just, again, per the regs.
Councilman.
Thank you. Mary, through the chair, it seems to me that given that we're, sort of chasing the dog's tail here, if we're worried about future use of the property, if the city's going to need it, if we have to do something, it would seem to me that the first, at the first condition would pretty much take precedence. If the city needed to take that property, we could terminate that lease at our sole discretion without giving a reason, without giving any notice, without doing anything else. And I realize that might impact the future business on that property, but it seems to me with the development, with the road being in place, with the sidewalks being in place, with everything fairly well built out there, it seems to me that the likelihood of the city needing that property is fairly remote. So it would seem to me that if the petitioner is in favor of a lease, if that's his first preference, if we have the option as a city at any time to rescind that lease, it would seem to me to be a no-brainer.
You're leaving your options.
And you leave your options open. You can terminate that lease. You know, if we leased it on Wednesday, if you wanted to terminate it on Friday, we could terminate it. And if the leasee is agreeable to those conditions, knowing that a year, 2 years, 10 years down the future, that might affect the business, if he's willing to take that risk, I would be in favor of going ahead and, pursuing a lease, right away.
Well, I was gonna ask, well, you go ahead, because you might be answering my question, so I'll hear.
Well, I was just gonna say that it's important to remember that in the process of going the meter route, remember that Dennis and the Planning Commission gets a shot at determining that very significant word, which is suitability. It's possible, in order to do the meters, the Planning Commission would have to determine that this area is suitable for meters. They may not say that. They may say it's not suitable for meters for the reasons that everybody has mentioned here today.
Where's that way?
It's in the public act that formed the parking authority.
Inform the parking authority?
Yes, yes.
So there are hurdles every way, right?
And that's what I'm saying, that whatever option, all option benefits and.
Lots of red tape has been built into this process.
Okay.
I'm relieved.
For relatively low-hanging fruit, yes, there are issues. And I think Dennis, there's a lot of wisdom in what Dennis said at a meeting last week, where the sale of this property would be the cleanest, best approach. You don't have those issues, but that's not an option. All I'm saying is that the meter route requires the Planning Commission to make a determination of suitability. And they will look at the issues that you guys are looking at right here, and they may come back with a report that says, we don't believe it's suitable. Or if they say it's suitable, then they'll sit and make some comments. So just keep that in mind, that your recommendation doesn't finish it.
Okay, that was my question, so
Wow.
if, could the committee just ask the planning commission to determine the suitability and then the committee reconvene? Or would that have to go right to the council?
So you could do that.
The whole
You could
council?
continue the committee, seek a report of suitability from the Planning Commission, and then make further determination in the next meeting. You do that.
Right, and that would have to go through, first through the planning commission, and then does it have to go through parking authority
No.
also? No,
No.
just the planning commission. Okay,
Well, that might not be a bad idea.
okay, Mr. Bertram.
But in light of this discussion, might I refine my earlier answer?
No, yes.
Which is, I think I prefer a lease. And we just administer it as quickly as we can, because it seems to be the safest way of proceeding. The condition, as I heard, the number one condition of the right to terminate was tied to a plan to improve the roadway. It wasn't just terminate without any subsequent, right? Is that the way it was drafted? I was just taking notes when you read it. I haven't read it myself.
That was the planning commission direction.
Yeah, the planning commission's
Yes, yes,
recommendation
yes,
was
yes.
that there be a right to terminate.
Should it be necessary to improve the roadway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so with
So
that
there is a
condition-
stipulation.
Right, it's
to-
not just willy-nilly, you're gone. It's, we're going to do this project, and that would be grounds for a termination of lease.
Okay.
It seems to me that if there are other steps to the parking meters, then we have a preference for the lease, and just move that along as quickly as we can.
Right, leases can take a very long time.
No, I get that, I just, well, but what,
Well, if you put it in parking meters,
Right.
he's gonna have to
Right,
agree to provide pass and repass rights, correct?
right.
yes, no, there's no
Over
question
your
about
property.
that.
I'm not so sure about that.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, Dan.
I
I don't know,
okay.
because there's certain public right of access unless you block access by the public to your facility,
Which we don't.
which you're not intending to, people can park or drive in and park in other spaces and park adjacent to your facility. I don't know why you want to block the people, the same customers from coming in and pulling into spots. So it's an unusual situation. I have to kind of examine that and see what we might need. I'm not sure we need a high level of, land rights as such. So I've got to
Okay.
really look at that.
Okay.
And I'll talk to Dennis about that. We'll see what.
But if we're limited in our seating in the cafe, that's where it pops up on
I'm
my
sorry,
screen.
Mayor, I didn't mean to
Nope,
direct
that's
you to
fine.
Dan.
Yeah, no, excuse me.
Mr. Sandlin.
Can learning council take us through the process for the lease, timeline and all?
Sure. This committee recommends a lease to the council. The document is drafted, goes to the council at the same time. The council sends the lease proposal to a public hearing.
Assessment, gotta have an assessment.
Sorry?
We need an assessment. I need an assessment.
Assessment of,
The
sorry.
value of the property.
Right.
Oh, an appraisal?
Yeah.
Okay. So then, those would be conditions that the committee would put on. We'd get those arranged beforehand, get the final information back to this committee, and then you go to the council out to public hearing. So 2-3 months. And then the
4,
council
6.
approves, the council would approve the document at the end and off to the races.
Councilman Calvo.
Through the chair, if I can just muddy the waters here.
Oh,
If you're
it's
gonna do
already
that,
muddied.
Mr. Pinter, would the process be any different if we were to sell the parcel? And my second question would be to Mr. Alpern, would the planning commission be favorable of that, seeing as that parcel had a different purpose at one time, and is it as valuable to us for an intersection improvement as it was when it was used years ago?
Well, they'll probably want a recommendation from Public Works, and they'll probably say, we gotta hold on to it because you
Okay.
never know.
Okay.
Okay, under the theory that you never know. Not a theory that I subscribe to, but others do. So I don't know what they would end up saying.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Penner, you'd have to get an appraisal for the sale. The
Well-
committee would want that, you'd have to have a public hearing for the sale. So you'd be doing all the same things as you would
The
be for
process
lease.
the process would be very similar with the higher bar of a higher vote necessary to
Right.
sell the property.
It's 2/3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, 2/3.
I mean, the planning commission would come back and
Just one
say,
appraisal?
we don't care, sell it.
We
Public
need-
Works had no issue with selling it.
You sure?
Yeah. Do it for airport property.
Mr. Taylor.
To
So
the
it's
chair,
for
to
acquisition.
either Les or Dennis, haven't we been through, I can recall the short time I've been on the council, several issues of determining, parking space values? Would those values be from, Chuck E. Cheese, the airport lease there, the property? I know we determined somewhere else parking space values. Would those be applicable to that property without going through that whole appraisal process again?
Not likely,
Not
because
likely, okay.
you have to have an appraisal for this location.
If for that
The
location?
airport location, the perimeter location could be somewhat unique.
Okay,
So this.
so they're not applicable to locations?
The way they would value it probably would be the same, per square foot or per space, whatever different options they had, the way they would do it, but the values would be different.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I may, Dan, you might want to leave the room for this, but this may not be for sensitive petitioner ears.
You're on TV.
Yeah, I know. We're charged with representing the best interests of the city. And making a deal with a petitioner, which we do on a pretty regular basis, is part of that. But the deal has to be made always with an eye towards the best deal for the owners of the property, which happen to be the citizens of City of Danbury, our constituents. And certainly if I was a petitioner, I think in this instance, the first thing I would want would be to get my hands on the property one way or the other, maybe buy it outright. If I couldn't do that, I think I'd want a license. I think a license would be more appropriate for me, and finally a lease and then maybe parking spaces. And that's fine, and that's the job of the petitioner, is to sort of arm wrestle us toward closer to his position than ours. But I think from the constituents' point of view, it is a better deal for the city to maintain control of the parcel. I've got some issues with the Army Corps of Engineers all this stuff was moved
want that
around.
too?
Well, it was moved around for the enclosure of the facility. And there may be some core issues here. I mean, the channel is right there, and I don't want to go down that road. And it may not be a road that we would have to go down, but if it turns out it is, we don't want to go down that road. I think the meters, assuming, and it's a sizable assumption, but it's not outside the realm of possibility, assuming that the Planning Commission is in favor of this, and perhaps we can work something out with counting these extra 4 spots so that he can get some more tables. Assuming that we can get that stuff done, I think we can get that stuff done relatively quickly, in a timely fashion. A sale, a lease, I mean, I don't know about you guys, I mean, I'm only one vote here, and I'm just one out of 21 votes in the council. I would really want to see a specific assessment or appraisal for this property. It may seem like a bit of an expenditure, but I would want to see one before I could create a value for the slots. That's going to take some time. I've done these before. We've taken, I mean, Biddle is probably, if you were doing a bell curve, Biddle would be the very outside of it, but it took 1.5 years. Maybe we could do it in half that time, but that's still next spring or summer.
9 months.
Right. Well, a lot happens in 9 months, right?
But
Parking meters, we can do parking.
Have a baby in there.
We can do parking meters lickety split, assuming that the other things fall into place. And if they don't, we're no worse off than we are now.
I'm just doing the
My
math.
suggestion, and I can make this a motion if we're ready to go down that road, is that we continue the charge of this committee for at least one more meeting as soon as possible. I would suggest early October, pending information from
Okay.
planning.
Yes.
It's to determine the suitability of.
Absolutely.
There's that.
Corporation Council, if you could work out the easement thing on the parking meters.
Parking authority code says the 9.
He made a motion, so is there a second? I'll second your motion.
Okay.
So discussion on the motion.
What would be, no matter how long this takes, that piece of property is built, developed, parking spaces are there in line. As I said, there's a piece of yellow, caution tape across there. What would be the feasibility of the petitioner using those spaces instead of having that space blocked off until we come to some, conclusion on what we're going to do?
Temporary.
I don't know,
That's one thing I would object.
I'm just asking because, like I said, I drove by there on the way
Yeah.
tonight. I saw the tape there. I hadn't seen the tape there. Those spaces have been there for 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen the tape until I drove by today.
Through
So-
the chair,
It's
Chair,
been-
that's something that I had written down here, that what the committee considers an interim license,
Yeah.
which is simply a 1 year or whatever you want to provide. You can do that immediately, immediately after the council approves it, in October, November, whenever. Whereby you would charge an estimated fee, you could use UBs for purposes of the year if you wanted to, and have an interim arrangement, or you could do a verbal license even. The risk is mainly on them because that could be withdrawn at any time, but it allows them to go ahead and use the spaces. And then you can reevaluate during that year period of time, based upon experience in the use of that site, whether it's working or not, and whether something else would be better. So that's an option that you do have.
Through the chair to the petitioner, and again, what is your feeling on that, Mr. Perkins? Just from my point of view, it would expedite your
appreciate
ability to use that property.
I appreciate that very much, and my general feeling is our timeline, as we look at having all the uses come alive, is we would like to have this completely resolved in 3 months.
Yeah, tomorrow.
No, but
Yeah.
really, from the standpoint of actually getting things up, living, and breathing. Now, as I sit here, whatever the easiest way to go is, we own, as a point of...
Okay, we have to
something
be careful because we do have a motion.
here. Oh, okay.
So we have to stay
Okay.
close.
Whatever the simplest thing is. Right now, when it's the other way around, I do want to say one quick thing. When it's the other way around, we have a letter to the city that says that you can use the corner of Main and Kennedy. That's probably 40, 50, 60, it could be any number of parking spaces. When it's the other way, it's as easy as a letter, right? This is a little tough. There are 4 spots a block away. So whatever we can do quickly is good for us. Whatever allows us to get the most number of tables for a cafe is better, I think, for everybody. We actually don't want to own the property as it relates to buying anything. We never wanted to buy this property. It was blighted. Somebody had to do something. So from the standpoint of stepping up, we're all in this together. We have all kinds of other things around here. It's why I'm not trying to push the form of this, because really, we're just trying to make some stuff happen. And so however you can work with us, we appreciate it, and it'll make us hopefully more effective and a little faster.
Okay. We really need to stick with the motion.
Would there be a way for Paul to modify that motion to perhaps incorporate that possibility of doing what Les said to free up that property quicker for their use? Would Paul be willing?
We can't, if I could just jump in here and then Les can back me up, we can't possibly get to a license before we would come back with our next meeting.
Okay.
There wouldn't be any reason. It would probably take, I mean, there's some questions under Taborsac whether we need a public hearing for a license or not, but some people have said that we do, which would require a public hearing, which we're looking at November, possibly December.
Right.
We could be meeting back here next week. So, well, it's a good intention. I think what you were probably thinking was that couldn't we just do something where he could start using it immediately?
Right, because they've been using it right along.
And then I'll defer to the mayor's office on that one.
No, actually,
No,
we
it's
built
been
it and we
blocked.
cordoned it off.
Yeah,
okay.
Just so you know.
blocked.
Right, but I think that's probably where you were going. In the meantime, while we're mulling all this stuff, while the
Right.
eggheads are trying to
Correct.
figure out which foot to put in front of the other, can he start using it? And he might be able to if he were to meet with the mayor's office and do something outside the charge of this committee.
Okay, good.
But the way that these committees are structured, it would be, we would come back here 5 times before the licenses would be ready, so that's not even necessary.
Okay,
that's-
does the
that's
committee
fine.
have any more discussion on a motion? Okay, then, all in favors?
Could you please just reiterate?
Okay,
State the
in
motion.
my motion, we want information from
To
planning,
determine
from
certain suitability?
whether planning would move in, when is our next meeting?
Probably the first Wednesday.
Is it next week? Can you get something on the agenda for next week?
Probably not, but I'll try. Whether or not PC
We'll approve
finds that
metered
the
parking.
4 spaces are suitable.
Thank you.
Okay. What else?
With parking meters.
Can you give me a firm figure on the amount of seats that he can get with the extra 4 and without?
I think I can do that now.
Okay.
But we're-
Because, you had said he needed 18, but he's got 19, but Dan thinks he, okay, all right, I understand, but I would want that, a firm
I can
number.
give you-
Right, and then from Les, I would want the feasibility of easements and I think that's all I need from Corporation Council. And from finance, what I would like is, if we're dreaming, which would make us more money? Would feeding meters make us more money? But we don't have an appraisal yet, so we can't go down that road. So I'm not.
Well, I'm meeting with the parking authority tomorrow. I can get an estimate of what they get per meter.
All right. Yeah, you can come back with that. That'd be great. Sure. Okay.
And did Paul also have an appraisal included in this motion?
He did, he just
Okay.
said something about
Yeah,
the
but
appraisal.
I don't want to put the city on the hook for an appraisal. They can run like $2,000 if we don't have to. If we're just doing the meters, we don't need an appraisal. If it turns out we can't do the meters, then we're going to have to get an appraisal.
Colleen might be able to just do it through the assessor's office.
Well, the last appraisal we got was $2,000.
Or that UB?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it was.
didn't know what
It
you
was,
were
it
doing.
was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a horse of a different color.
Yeah.
That's pretty substantial work that they did.
Colleen could give us some idea,
She
though,
won't do
right?
it.
Or
She,
she-
as it says, she generally declines to value it rightfully because.
I'd like to meet
Okay.
again, and then before we go down that road, because that's a can of worms that's really going to start, Yeah. It's a good point, though.
Mayor, can I ask to make a motion, so are you motioning to continue the meeting, Paul?
Yes,
Is that
that was
preface
it.
to the, I'm sorry,
Yes,
just to-
yes, as soon as possible.
Okay.
And we could even, if you guys could give us some indication of how long it would take, we could even come up with a potential date for the next meeting. I mean, I don't think, would 2 weeks do it? Could you?
I don't know.
You get with
I don't know.
plan,
what
okay,
the
all right.
schedule-
I'll tell you what,
I'm assuming it's the first Wednesday of the month. And I'm assuming it has not been postponed.
in as timely a fashion as we can,
Okay.
pending information received from the departments.
Okay.
I have this.
So
Let me-
now we will take a vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry. That's very curious.